A note to our listeners. The views and opinions expressed by our guests and hosts on the BLKFLA podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the official positions or views of any organizations, companies, or affiliations they may be associated with. Any statements made are personal opinions and should not be construed as representing their respective employers or organizations. As always, thanks for listening.
Revolution was a movie, I be theme music. Time to ignite what I spit is lighter fluid. Stepping into it, fixed ways, such a glorious design. Marching into the biggest fight of our lives. Time to spoil the revolution.
Good people, welcome to the BLKFLA experience. We are the cultural archive for the Black political movement in the state of Florida and the voice of Black organizing in the state of Florida, where our purpose is to help you reimagine a Florida where Black people are able to live in freedom, equity, and authenticity. We are your hosts, Jamal STEELE, as well as my good friend,
Natasha Sutherland. Hey.
Hey, y'all, and we are taking this time to dive into all things Black politics and Black culture. Let us dive right into it. So, as you all may or may not know, we are in the midst of legislative session here in the grand old state of Florida. I say that with a smile on my face and a little snicker within that, because if you do any type of organizing or pay attention to politics in any type of way in the state of Florida, you know how much of a joyous, and I use that term loosely, joyous time these 60 days are for those who aren't really up on legislative session. It is 60 days or so of where our state legislators go up to Tallahassee from across the state and focus primarily on state budget, passing pieces of legislation, and pretty much trying to take care of all of the needs of the constituents that they represent for their districts. And so we wanted to make sure that our people had a better understanding of how legislative session goes down, what legislative session is all about, and how does the legislature in the state of Florida really move and maneuver, and how it benefits you, the Black community here in the state of Florida. And so we invited some incredible legislators who just so happens to be really good friends of the podcast. And so I am going to allow the good sis as well as the good brother to introduce themselves and let you know which particular districts and which particular chambers of the state legislature that they represent. I start with the good sis down in Jackson.
Hey everyone, happy to be here again. I'm Angie Nixon. I am from Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida. I represent Florida House District 13, which is Northwest Jacksonville, some of West Side, Riverside, Avondale. You know, that's me.
All the great things. I'm very happy to call Angie my state representative, and not just in a figurative sense, but in a literal sense, because I live in the great district of District 13, and contrary to what people may want you all to believe, Representative Angie Nixon is a great representation of District 13 and gets things done for the constituents of District 13. Hint, hint, all the shade. Good brother.
No, I want you to keep going because we need to be bragging on Rep. Nixon like that because she's fighting a good fight in Jacksonville. So, and we salute her every single day. Representative Nixon, that's for you. I'm Shevrin Jones, and I represent Senate District 34 down in Miami, Florida, where I represent Miami Gardens, which is my western part of my district, and the northern portion of Miami Beach. Which is the east part of my district. I am happy to be here with you all today and looking forward to the conversation.
I appreciate this. I appreciate you taking out the time to join us on today. I also appreciate you just answering the call to represent those who you represent down in South Florida on the Senate end. So, State Senator Jones, before we get into, the meat and potatoes of things, you are the newbie to the podcast. And so we have a thing where we call the 5 in 5.
Uh-oh.
We give you 2 top 5s, and you have to give us your top 5s on these particular categories.
Okay.
And so the first top 5 is, can you please give us your top 5 favorite music artists?
Beyonce. Listen, y'all gonna laugh at me. Shirley Caesar, I love her. She's like the best to me. Patti LaBelle. Anita Baker. And oh my God. One more. Yeah. Oh, God. Michael Jackson.
Hey.
That's a great list.
That's a good list.
That's a good list.
I have no problem.
Traveling music. It gets you through your entire travels.
I have no problem with that list whatsoever. The good Pastor Shirley Caesar is a constant joy to listen to anytime that you are on the road.
Right.
And I feel like every person that's been on this podcast has Beyonce, Giselle Knowles-Carter in the list, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So the second top 5 is going to be top 5 organizers or cultural figures that have shaped you to be the organizer and elected official that you are right now.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm a Dwight Bullard.
Wow.
All right now. Okay.
Yeah, number 1. And we could talk about that in the podcast a while.
We just had him on.
Right.
Yeah. Dwight Bullard. Because of the let me see, Dwight Bullard. And I love Jasmine Burney. Like what she stands for. I respect her a lot. That's my number 2. My number 3, and even if she wasn't on here, I would say it because she is unapologetic about our Blackness, and that is Angie Nixon, who was on here. And I got a great deal of respect for her. Because she says and do things that I just do not have the confidence to do at times, right? But she do it right at the right moment. So I mean that. And one more. Oh God. One more person. I don't know. I can't. I'm lost on the last one.
And here's the other thing: they don't have to be just from Florida, and they can also be living or deceased. Just 5 organizers or cultural figures that have shaped the way you are as an organizer and an elected official.
Marsha P. Johnson.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Like I don't think we kind of ravel long enough in like people who like sacrifice for more than just a path for us to be at, but just for us to be where we are today. Like, yeah, Marsha P. Johnson.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. Marsha P. has taught me so much as well as the other 3 individuals that you named. prior to the shindig, shout out to former State Senator Dwight Bullitt, who was actually on the first episode of season 2.
Okay.
Jasmine Burney Clark. We looking to get you on later on in the season. And of course, our new co-host and consistent friend to the podcast, Rep Nixon, out here doing great things. Dab on them. So let's get into it, y'all.
All right.
We are once again in the midst of legislative session. For those of you all who don't know, if we are in even number years, legislative session is from January until March. But because we are in an odd number year, legislative session starts in March, ends in May, and is 60 days of chaos and happenings and all of the shenanigans. And once again, let me give y'all a lesson. If you let these people shenan once, they will shenan again and again and again. And so that is what we are dealing with in these 60 days of glorious joy and rapture known as legislative session. Now, we, of course, just like on the federal level, here on the state level, we have 2 chambers of the state legislature. We have the State House of Representatives, and we have the state Senate. And these people move bills, pieces of legislation, sometimes tied together, sometimes separate for each chamber, but always trying to move something that will benefit the people sometimes, but corporate interests most of the time. State Senator Jones, my first question to you is, can you talk with us about why state government is important, especially in this era of resistance that we are in?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for giving that lead in to as far as where we are right now. But I want to kind of build on, even prior to us even getting to state government, the importance of people understanding their power in local government, because eventually this stuff begins moving, right? But our state government, and particularly in Florida, is extremely important because they are dictating what happens in the place where you live. More particularly in Florida, where all these things have been preempted, where Tallahassee wants to play king of municipalities. And what we find is that they want to be in control. So now in this day and age, you have to pay attention to state government, because these are the same individuals that are either giving or taking away your rights and telling what you can, you cannot do. And these are the same individuals who are blocking access in our communities with various different things in various different ways. And I know there's a lot of people who kind of start detaching themselves as politics or government gets further and further away from them when it comes to state government and federal government. But I mean, again, in this day and age, I would tell people that you have to equally be engaged in all branches and levels of government.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And Rep Nixon, if you have anything that you want to add to that about why do you feel state government is important, especially in the particular era of life that we live in?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I just echo and ditto, ... all the things that the good senator just stated. And just like he was going into it about preemption, right? Folks may not know what that means, but what it means is the state government decides what the local government can and cannot do. And oftentimes, they stop us from doing certain things, or they stop the local governments from doing certain things, or force local governments to do certain things because they say that, the state has almost like the final say. And too often we're seeing that, right? There were some citizen-led initiatives, i.e., your rent stabilization, or what's the other term, Natasha? Rent stabilization to rent control, right? So like in Orange County, the voters decided that they wanted to stop rent from increasing by 10% just for 1 year. They put it on the ballot, they won, and the state came back the very next year and preempted it and made it illegal for local governments to do something like that, or citizens to do something like that in the state. And so a lot of stuff like that happens in Tallahassee, particularly when it involves corporations losing some money. And so it's really important. If you don't want many Elon Musk running around here dictating whether or not your property insurance is going to be super high or not, whether or not your utility bills are going to be super high or not, then you have to get involved and vote in your state elections.
Can I add? Sorry, Jamil. One thing too about our state elections that I think is really important is that eventually that person that does state work could end up in the White House or in U.S. Senate, or right. So it's really important. A lot of people that end up in the political, realm, they start at the local level, right? And so if you allow them to keep on going and going and going, who knows where they end up next? So it's really important that we are involved now, early at the local level, to kind of control what happens at higher levels in the future too.
Once again, back to my original lesson. If you continue to let them shenan once, they will do what? Shenan again and again.
Yep.
And they will keep bringing their shenanigans higher and higher and higher.
I just caught that.
Government.
I just caught that. Shenan again. I'm so slow. Shout out to Rep Rayner, who just joined us, looking like her and Senator Jones. Did y'all converse about what y'all were gonna wear and all the things?
No,
Not this trip.
Not this trip. I literally been having a Sunday fun day with Rep Gant, and I was like, I gotta get I'm at Midtown Reader. I was like, I gotta get on the line. I was like, listen. Our friend was like, it's 2:08, ma'am. I was like, I'm hurrying.
So listen, y'all. No. So listen, we have another wonderful, awesome guest that has joined us on this episode. I would like for you to introduce yourself and let the people know which particular district that you represent in your chamber of the legislature.
So my name is Michele Rayner, Michele K. Rayner, put some respect on it. Thank you, my daddy. And I represent District 62, which is St. Petersburg and Hillsborough. I'm also running for State Senate, District 16. Boom, 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 boom. I'm a masochist. That's really what that means. That means nothing else, but I'm a masochist. And I currently serve in the State House. I'm a lawyer. I'm a civil rights attorney. I'm an organizer, activist. My pronouns are she, they, tired. I'm just, it's a Sunday. I'm taking a quick moment out of my Sunday to hang out with y'all because I'm still in Tallahassee. I did not drive home. And so I am here. So, yeah. So we are here. That is all that I have. I don't know how much I could add to this conversation because I'm tired.
First and foremost, now that we got all of the introductions and pleasantries out of the way, it's good to see you, friend.
It's good to see you. It's good to be seen.
You're looking great.
I feel great.
Secondly, we will also throw this question to you. Can you talk with us about why state government is so important, especially in this era of resistance that we are in right now?
I mean, I feel like, this is like the refrain that we've had on this podcast, particularly. I mean, listen, we see what's happening at the national level. All of that Florida was the birthplace of that, right? Florida was the testing ground. Florida was the breeding ground of all of that. So we know that, the things that happen in Florida or in other states that kind of gives the national people the gusto, the chutzpah, if you will, to kind of do what they should not do, especially if it works. And especially here, I also want to say this really clearly. the things that we see in Florida working, they're not really working. They were gerrymandered and manipulated to work. So I also want to be very, very clear about that. It's not that people are like, oh, this is the greatest thing. They literally, the people that have been in power since 2000 manipulated a system to make it look like it works and to make it look like it matters. And so state government is super important because not only does it influence what happens at a national level, but also it influences what happens at a local level as well. And so I think that it is incumbent upon people to be really focused on what's going on. But the plan is that if folks can overwhelm you by all of the bad things that they're doing in like state government, and you're like, I'm just trying to make sure I don't pay $18 for an 18 pack of eggs, right? You will get tired and you're not focusing on that. So it is super important. But I also understand why people are like, bro, I don't have the time because of all of this that we're experiencing and seeing and that's going on. And so I think that also as us as electeds and as people who are in movement work and organizing work, there has to be a level of empathy and a level of humanity that we understand that like sometimes our people just don't have it. They just don't have it.
Listen, I'm not going to argue with you on any of this. Not going to argue with any of y'all on any of this. One, primarily because there are people who y'all look in their faces on a consistent basis that you have to, and I know that y'all hate to hear this term constantly and consistently. Y'all have to work across the aisle with them to get things done, and you may get a little of what you need done in order for them to still move a lot of what they want for their corporate interests to be satisfied. This next question I have is for State Senator Jones. And this is a really important question. As we stated before, during legislative session, we have both chambers of the legislature moving and maneuvering, whether through pieces of legislation or other things of that nature. Many of the people that, hey, Rep Grant, how we doing out there?
Wait, sorry, can I just jump in? Y'all are at Midtown Reader. Y'all got to get the pie. You got to get the pie. Why? It's Black-owned baker that they have the pies.
Ashley.
It's a Black woman
Natasha,
selling them pies. So hit it up.
Said the pie. She said it's a Black-owned woman selling the pies.
Okay. Yep.
You don't get the pie.
Get the pie.
Listen, that is worth the interruption. So for you, State Senator Jones, how does the balance of power work specifically in our state government, especially when it pertains to the way things move through both chambers of the legislature?
Well, let's be clear. The balance of power in our state legislature, it leans one way. And even in that balance of power, it's intentional. And I wanted to build on something that you all were talking about and something that Representative Rayner said very eloquently. They're just going to give you just enough to continue to move their agenda, but it's really not your agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want us to always be clear of the fact that they're not going to allow us to win. So that's why we must continue to have some dissenting voices. So I start off by saying that. But the balance of power and the importance of it is, or the lack thereof, is what we're dealing with right now. It puts us in the position that we're in right now, right? Rayner said it, and Representative Nixon said it also, that you have a party that have been in power for 30 years. And of these 30 years, now they are trying to discover the inefficiencies of government that they have been in charge of.
Wild.
It just don't math to me.
The math. Mm-mm.
Where is the math?
And
math
so
ain't math, y'all.
when we talk about the balance of power, and I'll be honest, if we're not careful, we are going to find ourselves into where state legislatures because Florida, I believe they're building it, but if you've been here long enough, you see it. The state legislatures are going to be the only place where cities and counties are ran through.
Ooh, child. Ooh, child. Are you saying that they're trying to basically eliminate local municipalities and county governments? Is that what you're alluding to?
That's why preemption starts.
Ooh.
Preemption starts because if we can get enough power from those individuals who could be legislating outside of our interests. So when we talk about the balance of power is wanting to be all in control. And I'll end with this and I'll shut up, right? Yeah, I think we have this confused. It's not the fact that these people absolutely are married to this bullshit that constantly happens. It's the power that they are enamored with.
So Senator Jones, it's so interesting that you said that. So like literally last night, my man and I were having this discussion of where does it birth out of? I said, well, it bursts out of love. And he says power. And to me, it's like the same, it's this different side of the same coin, power or love, whether it is love of ego or love of power. But then what is that? And it's literally like, if this wasn't the thing that worked for them, they would pivot to something else.
Something else, exactly.
They would literally pivot to something. This is not like I have this deep-seated belief in like these values. This is what's resonating with other people and in order for them to increase their power. But if it was something else, they would literally pivot. They're not honest brokers. They're not, like, you know what I mean? They're not these like deep moralistic people. This is what works. This is what's going to get us to our end goal. So this is the horse that we're going to continue riding.
And look what just came out last week. Just came out last week in a Republican poll. They saw in a recent poll that their pushback on trans issue is very popular, and it crosses racial and all type of lines. And so they just said they're going to use that as their strategy for 2026. So again,
I mean, literally, and then I'm sitting in there with people who come in my office talking about, I really don't care about this, but then they're the most vocal opponents. So like, make it make sense. Like, and so at this point, like, I mean, I know we probably aren't going to pivot here, but I am, because here we are. Like, Democrats got to get it together. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, I said this on Dr. David Johnson's podcast, and I'm gonna say it here. When they go low, I go to hell. Like, period, full stop. Like,
I don't go to hell. I go to medium.
No, I go to hell. I go to hell.
But can you take them with you to hell, please?
And gladly. And gladly drag you to hell.
I ain't trying to go to hell. But also, I just want to lift up.
Do you want to go to hell?
Hell no.
I want to lift up that Rep Rayner. Yes, everything you said is like correct, except the hell part for me. But I also want to talk about, you just slid in here. You was with your man. What?
Don't worry about that.
We're getting personal.
Talk about
getting personal. Okay.
I'm like, right?
And I also want to know for the folks to be like, oh, she's queer, baby. Don't worry about that until I invite you in. That's not your business. Period. Anyway,
listen, Angie, I thought I was the only one who caught that.
I hear that. Oh, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not the state government, so I'm not going to be worried about your bedroom issues.
Hello.
But it is all about power and control. And like I tell people, it's because, you know, they see the writings on the wall that they are not the majority right now, that Black, brown, queer, gay, women, like all these marginalized communities, when they come together, they form the majority, the new majority. Yep. And so they're fearful that if these marginalized communities come into power, that they're going to do to them what they've done to us for hundreds of years. And so it's really important for our folks to we also have to hold each other accountable, because sometimes, you know, power does corrupt some folks, right? And we got to remember that we lead with love and honesty and dignity and respect. Mm-hmm. But yeah, these folks is crazy. They are wilding out here, just wilding.
Cray, cray.
It's great. But I mean, I feel like real quick, like I feel like we've in this moment have to decide where we're going to be. And I'm going to say this: there is a space for resistance and there's a space for decorum, and you need them both. Like they're not and or both. Some people are going to be the resistance. Some people are going to be the decorum. And we have to understand, like, we don't push against each other. We learn how to work in tandem with each other, because where the decorum folks may be able to go, maybe folks like me, Senator Jones or Nixon can't go, but where the resistance folks can go, maybe the decorum folks can't go. But we all work together. We're all together. We need all of us together in this moment.
Yeah, and you know what? To build on that, what Rep Rayner is saying, yeah, that's why it baffles me when people get upset because the way someone vote this way or the way someone advocates for something this way. I mean, listen, if you're going to be a big tent party, just know that everyone is not going to agree the same way, but yet and still we're trying to get to the same place. So what's the argument, right? Anyway, because you're going to have an in-house fight on issues that ultimately we all agree on. How we're getting there, I think we're getting caught up in the nuances, and the nuances is not what's going to get us to where we're trying to go.
Listen, that doesn't get us to freedom. And then I think that we have to have that conversation. You know, I don't believe in respectability politics. Some motherfuckers believe in it. That's not me. I don't believe in it because I believe that you could be in a suit and get your head busted in. So I've said this: respectability politics will kill you. Some people, that's what they do. But how can we say, I don't agree that this is the approach, you don't agree with that this is the approach, but what is the end goal? The end goal is liberation. The end goal is freedom. So how do we work together with your mindset? I work together with my mindset, and we work this thing on out. That, you know what I mean? And that's okay. And understand, like, I'm gonna let you do you, how you move. You gonna let me do me, how we move. But how we strategically together, all of us gonna work this thing on out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to bring up a point of a quote that ties into the conversation that Michele was having with her man Angie. So this quote states, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic."
Text me that quote.
I will. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. And that's, of course, from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Also, shout out to Juice. Juice with the cameo.
Hey, baby.
Juicy juice.
Juice.
Juicy juice.
Yeah.
Juice, why are you so big though? Why are you so big?
I know.
Why are you so big? Why are you so big? Why you look like a little...
Don't get up. We're not gonna get her started because she will not stop.
Keep acting like a baby, mommy. You acting like a baby or something.
I love her. I love how the babies be like, I'm not a baby. Yes, you are.
Yes, absolutely. Natasha, we're gonna move over to you.
Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about power, balance of power. You all were talking about preemption at the local level, right? And everything running through the state government, and without the state government, it cannot happen. And I also would be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that we're trying to do that. The government is doing that in the reverse as well, with like the dismantling of Department of Education and others, and sending everything back to the states. So I find that also really interesting. And it's like, all roads are leading to state government, right? And all of the power and the rules that we have to live by are running through our state government. And so on the subject of rules, though, which is like policies, laws, that kind of thing, I can't help but think about the citizen-led amendment process, right? Process for Floridians really was the opportunity, is still technically the opportunity for Florida voters to vote directly on specific issues and specific policies. And then we have the opportunity to vote on them. And in Florida, of course, we have to do it with 60% of the vote to approve it. So this past election cycle, for example, we had Amendment 3, which was to legalize recreational marijuana for adult use. And we had Amendment 4, which was to stop Florida's extreme abortion ban. And, so these are through the citizen-led amendment process. And so they empower everyday citizens to pass policies that are going to improve our lives, strengthen our communities, and in particular, to pass policies when the elected officials refuse to do the things that we need them to do for us, right? It's our way of sort of circumventing this concentration of power at the state level to do things like we've done in the past. For example, we've raised the minimum wage in the past. We were able to protect the environment, create universal pre-K, legalize medical marijuana, restore the voting rights for returning citizens, and even put term limits on y'all, right? Like, so it is a way for everyday people to have a say in the rules that they have to live by every single day. But what is happening this legislative session is that there are bills moving to change the citizen-led amendment process. And so, Rep. Rayner, I want you to please, if you could, kind of tell us a little bit more about the fight that you are currently having to protect Floridians' citizen-led amendment process moving forward so that we can continue to have this form of direct democracy to have a say in our lives.
I mean, I think that like you're spot on with it. So I filed a bill with Senator Smith, Carlos Guillermo Smith, in order to stop government influence in citizen-led ballot initiatives. As we saw in the last election cycle, it was unprecedented that the governor decided to use state money in order to influence citizen-led ballot initiative campaigns. Unprecedented, has never happened in our state government. And even if, groups were to file injunctions and those kinds of things, the legal process would have been too slow to catch up with what they are doing. So I filed a bill with Senator Smith to say, like, you can't do that. Here's the deal. And this is why I say that the state of Florida is gerrymandered and manipulated to reflect a value system or a party system that actually does not exist. There are 57% of the people that said we need to push back against this extreme abortion ban, right? Yep. 57% of people. But remember, I believe it was in 2012 that the threshold became higher for the citizen ballot initiative to 60%. And so what happens is like, oh, y'all motherfuckers getting too close. We got to move the goalposts. And the best example I can think of is Charlie Brown and Lucy. When, for those who don't know, if you're younger and you don't know, because you're like a Gen Z or whatever the thing is now, there's a character named Charlie Brown. And he would kick the football. He would go kick the football. And Lucy's like, yeah, you're going to kick the football. And as he would run and kick it, she would pull it up. And he'd be like, oh, again, it'll fall on his back. And then she would say again, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. You can run again. And you can kick the football. You got it. I promise you, you got it. And Charlie Brown's going to run and run and run. And it looks like it's going to be the best kick ever. And then she would pull it up again and say, oh, JK, that is literally what they're doing. And so at the end of the day, is this probably going to pass 100,000%? It will probably get signed into law? Absolutely. So once again, we have to learn what their rules are, and we have to be able to play it better and know the rules better. The person that is the most powerful is not the person that makes the rules. It's the person that has control of the information and knows how to be able to use those rules in order to get what they want. So I can make the rules, but if I know the rules better than you and I know how to actually do the thing better than you, you're actually not the most powerful person. And that makes that's incumbent upon us to understand and see what they're doing. We see what they don't hide what they're doing. They're literally not hiding it. Mm-hmm. They're literally saying, like, here it is, babes. So how do we take what they're doing, play with inside their rules, and know the playbook better? And so that's kind of, I think, where we're at. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, like, as a regular person, that may or may not even know that this is happening, what would you tell folks that are interested in this? Because I know we've got, at the Comms Hub, we do a bunch of research and polling, and we found that it's this particular move of eroding the citizen-led amendment process is wildly unpopular, right? So like 72% of Florida registered Republicans actually support keeping the citizen-led amendment process in place, right? So this is like a bipartisan thing that folks all across the state value. And so, like, if we're hearing about this for the first time or anything like that, like, what can we do as regular people to try to keep our power?
I'm going to say that. Go ahead. No, I was going to say this and defer to you, Senator. I was going to say this small piece and defer to you real quick. So So my small piece is this, is that once, as you know, I mean, in my county, we just did a town hall without Anna Paulina Luna, right? We just did a town hall without our Republican representatives, and it was powerful. There was like 400 people there. So I think that you've got to get to a place, if you're a regular citizen and you know this and you're educated about this, or, you know, electeds like us or organizers are telling people about it, you've got to decide in this moment who you're going to be. And are you going to hold them accountable? And is your personal comfort going to be more important than the greater good? And so that's just kind of what I would say. I'm going to defer to Senator Jones as well on that.
No, so I actually want to piggyback on something because Rayner, you were going down a path, and I want you all to understand. And Natasha, you start giving the numbers as it pertains to Republicans who disagree with how they are doing the citizen-led initiatives. But I also want us to be clear on why the Republicans are responding the way they are in some of these other states, because people do not like to be, one, told what to do, or people also when they feel that a nation is moving into a dictatorship, it clicks on people, especially in our parents' generation and others. Now that's why we see older people up in arms. They're like, wait, hold up. Whether you're talking about civil rights or whether you're talking about, you name it, fill in the blank, people are pushing back on what they're seeing. And so how do we capitalize on making sure people understand that, your rights are under attack right now?
Yeah.
Like, and messaging that even within our communities. The one thing I can appreciate with individuals like Rep Nixon and Ana Escalmani, and there's some others, and how they are able to connect with people, is because they understand that people are not moving at the stratosphere where government is at. And when you start talking to people where they actually understand it, that's where you begin moving people. Now, now I understand. Now I understand. If this happens, here's the effect of it in my household, and bring it back to kitchen table issues. I don't know if I went down a rabbit hole, but it just felt good at that time.
No, that's right. I mean, I think, and I remember back when, I used to work with you all in the legislature as a staffer, and I remember being in committee with y'all and some of the members saying, hey, my district is opposed. And then the bill sponsor saying, well, I didn't hear anything. I haven't, nobody wrote me, nobody. Right. And I think for our listeners, believe it or not, you actually can email these people and you can make phone calls. And if I'm not mistaken, they can even make an appointment or even drop by your offices. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even know that. They think that you all are these untouchable, up in the clouds type of folks just because you're elected. Well, I don't know about you, Angie, because, you be on that Facebook. But for the rest of y'all, they don't know.
They
and
run up on me. Do you hear me? They run up on me.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm
in the middle of a book sale. Hey, I got a question I need to ask you. I'm trying to sell this book right now, man.
Gotta serve the constituents. But yeah, people should talk to y'all, right? You want to hear from you. Okay.
Yeah, they should talk.
Rayner don't want to talk to them.
Don't do that. Don't do that. They should talk to me, but with boundaries. Because listen, I'm a Black woman with boundaries. I think that I had to get to that point in my elected career because I would give so much of myself that I would be depleted. And now I'm like, okay, I 100% want to talk to you, but you're going to respect my boundaries. Just and I'm going to say this on this thing, just like you do these white boys, you're going to do it for me. You're going to do it for me. You going to follow their process. You're going to follow mine.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you can't, I think, and you're right. I do think people get twisted because they do, whether it's through email, Twitter, and all these other places, and they think they can talk to you any kind of way and you're not going to respond. And it's just not me personally.
That's not my ministry, because I am going to respond, and it may not be the way that you think it is, because I will give you back this elected stuff. It don't matter to me. I have a whole man in Miami that if he told me right now to come, here you go. Jamal, you might want to recap this, but I mean what I say. Don't try me. Do not try me. I am human as well. In the good words of my good soror, Jasmine Crockett, I will tell y'all to F off. Like, stop playing with me.
So now we've also found out that he's in Miami.
I was waiting for that. We're getting more details. We're just starting to peel back the layers.
And guess what? He's Senator Jones's frat brother, and he knows him.
Oh,
did you look that up?
Hold on, let me get on Facebook.
Surprise!
It was actually Representative Kent that hooked it up.
I like this type of podcast. Y'all can have me on every Sunday.
First off, Senator Jones, because it was me that connected you to your partner, so don't do this.
I'm just saying, you're right. Hey, I'm grateful for it. Thank you so much.
Well, all right.
You're welcome.
Well, Cupid is in the air.
I was about to say, so we all coupled up, huh?
Everybody.
Yes, baby.
Yes, baby. Get you old, you better figure it
out. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Your elected officials are human too. They love to.
Period.
Be nice when you email them, but do email them. Jamil, you want to
email me?
Get us back on track?
Listen, first and foremost, all the things, all the things. Love is in the air, and it's beautiful and it's prosperous. And so with that, so as we continue to have this conversation, around power, we also understand that the power is being shifted in a negative fashion within our educational system here in the state of Florida. As we all know, there have been the things around banning books, banning various forms of history, banning what we can and can't say within the schools, banning whether we can or cannot use pronouns. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with. And that was just last year. And so with that, we have current pieces of legislation that are maneuvering in both chambers that is having a negative effect within our education system. And so I'm going to direct this question over to Rep. Nixon. Rep. Nixon, can you talk with us about what the state government is currently doing to our education, and how are you helping to combat those ills?
Yeah, so for sure, as you all see, I have a little one who will be entering into the public education sphere during the next school year. But she was supposed to enter into it this past school year, but they had to cut back on the 3-year-old program because charter schools have been coming, taking all the money away, and as well as the private schools. Stop, baby. As well as the private schools with the voucher program. So what we're seeing is the dismantling of public education. And frankly, I think they just want to end it all together. Why do I think they want to end it all together? Because education is a very lucrative business. And these private schools can make all this money. And also, some of these private schools can make money and not educate our children, and also make money on the back end by imprisoning them with the school to prison pipeline. And so it's really, really bad. Right now, they are trying to change the grading scale of schools. And we recently had a bill sponsor who used to be a Democrat, who's now a Republican, to sponsor this bill that would change the grading scale for schools. And as you know, if schools have a failing grade for, I forget how many years now, but they go into turnaround status. But there's also a bill this year that will push those schools to basically allow municipalities to be able to but get all of their surplus property and take over schools there and convert them to charter schools. And then there's, some push to get more vouchers to be able to be handed out to folks who want to send their children to private corporate schools. And this is all at I'm sorry, you're gonna have to cut this, Jamal, on brain. But this is all at the detriment of our babies, like the one that you hear in the background. And it's really a slap in the face, but they want to give the power to the states and eliminate. They are eliminating the federal Department of Education to give the power to the states, and then we see that the states are basically hand tying our local school boards, and preempting them and stopping them from doing the things that we need our children to go through. And not only that, like, there's a blanket attack on educators. Like, educators are afraid to teach. And then what's so interesting is now we see them talking about these failing governmental schools, these failing government schools. And it's like, but y'all created them. Like, y'all created the curriculum. Y'all created the standardized testing. You created everything, and you wonder why they're failing. It's because of you, Republicans, who have been in office and in power for over 30 years. How I am trying to combat it, working with grassroots organizations on the ground. And then also, like, you may not know it, like, Angie Nixon does work across the aisle. I work across the aisle, but I do it behind the scenes because, they say I'm a little radical. But, like, there are some Republicans that are trying to push back incrementally against these types of things. There are some Republicans that are trying to provide funding for early childhood education because they realize that in order for us to basically save the next generation, like, we got to educate them early on, and we got to try to keep them out of that school to prison pipeline. And so that's some of the things that I'm working towards.
And I appreciate that. Rayner, I know that you have to be on the move. You're on the move. You're always on the move. But I do want to give you an opportunity to touch on this as well, and also give us any type of parting words.
I think that my colleagues have said it the best, but I think that this is the time to really, like, lock in. Like, I understand and I get the strategy of keeping us overwhelmed, keeping us tired. But, if we are going to push back on this narrative that I believe is untrue, that folks on the other side have this mandate, we actually have to do the thing in 2026. And the thing in 2026 is not just only voting, it's organizing. It's really finding political homes. It's really mobilizing and getting our people out together. And then it's also for us to understand who happen to be in this space, to understand why our people may not want to be in that space, and may understand why our people may not want to be engaged. And I think that if you know that you have champions, whether it's like myself or Senator Jones or Rep Nixon or Gann or Escamani, and I could start naming so many people, make sure, like, you don't even understand, like, sending us a note of, like, y'all got it. Like, that's so encouraging, because especially we're up here in these 60 days. And so what I would tell people ultimately is find where your hands can work, find what you can do. It doesn't have to look like it looks like for us. It doesn't have to look like it looks like for anybody else. But what is the thing that gets you going, and invest in that? And so, yeah, it's not easy. We're in it. And yes, we're resisting and pushing back, but we also have to look to the next election cycle and really decide, like, if this is who we're going to be. And if this is who we're going to be, then so be it. But if this is not who we want to be, it's going to take work. It's going to take sacrifice of us all. Like, I don't want Parable of the Sower to become like an actual thing. Y'all can look that up. Jamal will post the link in the notes. But I don't want that to be a thing. So we have to do the thing in order for it to not be. So yeah, that's it.
Right, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming through.
Thank you.
So Rep Gann,
Bye,
I
y'all.
said, So right guy, I said, what's up? And we will check for you later.
Gang, 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 gang. Bye.
Gang, gang.
Bye.
Listen, Rep. Nixon, I also want to know what are some changes to the laws as it pertains to education that you think are helpful or unhelpful, and why?
I mean, I think we need to pay our educators more, starting out with a starting salary, a nice high starting salary or a livable wage, but also like pay those who have who've been there for a while. Like, we want to keep them, we want to retain them. Also, ensuring that you know they are working to eliminate. They're working to eliminate the Department of Education, and so our school breakfast programs, our school breakfast programs and our free lunch programs are under attack, and so wanting to make sure that we're addressing those issues. Also, if we're gonna do vouchers, like let's expand that to early childhood education. Oftentimes, our children start behind, so like, because they can't afford it, their parents can't afford to send them to a good quality education. Why not allow those voucher programs to expand to early childhood education so that folks could get, their children's started early? Things like that are really critical. And honestly, I just feel like early childhood education should be free, period. Like just straight up free. I feel as though all education should be free. And so that's what I would say, period. Like those are the things that should happen. Even post-secondary. Universal education for all.
Listen, I mean, and those are good things to touch on. Being a parent myself, I'm just like, I'm always stressing about the fact that we are in the space, and I can say we, meaning myself, Angie, and countless other individuals who, we got the kids. We are in the space of really honestly raising free Black children. And you always have that small tinge of worry of whether or not you put your kids in the education system that's going to essentially break them down and break that true free thought and true free way of movement that I feel like all of our Black children deserve to have, by forcing them to assimilate and honor respectability, if you will, and not really teaching them anything but how to pass these whack standardized tests and keep it moving through the system. Senator Jones, I'm also throw it to you as well if you have any like remarks or anything as it pertains to those legislations around education.
So, I mean, I think Representative Nixon, I think she wrapped it up like enough to talk us through how we got here. But I also want us to understand like this breakdown in education that we're seeing right now has been happening for years, right? Like where we are right now is exactly where they want us, right? They want to move education back to the states, because if I can move education back to states that are already inadequately funding our educational systems, that would just continue and further exacerbate the lack of proficiency that our young people are receiving in our educational systems. We are already segregated, right? In the start of the building of the whole the movement of vouchers. I mean, that all of that came about because many times white parents did not want their children inside the same classroom with as Black children. So exactly. they create a system where it can happen. So we need to be clear that none of this is new, right? Is how it's happening, and what has been happening over the past few years has been in the works for a very long time. Now, here's what I will say, and it probably is not popular, But I think we as Democrats, I think we as people who are pro public education, we need to figure out what does it look like for us to work within their system to begin teaching our own children. Because if we are going to go down this route where you want to send education to the states, I think that we, especially within Black communities, I think we need to get to a place where we figure out what is the best way to educate our own. If you want to educate our children, then we need to work within the system to begin to educate our own children. Because the dumbing down of America is a real thing. Because if I can attack education system, discredit it, now it is now the evil thing to where it's no need for it. Why do you think they're attacking the higher education system? Think about it. If I can say, if I can speak out against higher education or students going to college, and I'm no longer building a pipeline for communities, we start going back and we start going backwards to a place to where you have individuals who are in communities who are less educated. And because they're less educated, now we're more dependent on government. So it's all of this is an absolute domino effect. And that's not progressive talk. That's logic of what we're seeing right now within our system. And Natasha, I know you want to say something.
No, just that you're right on it. I mean, essentially what they are trying to do is roll us back to how things used to be, right? Increasing the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Because at the end of the day, the people that have the resources, the people that are at the top, their kids are still going to get educated. Their kids are still going to go to college. Their kids are still going to have those opportunities so that they can maintain the wealth and the power within their networks, within their families, and ensure that everybody else just has less opportunity. Because at the end of the day, education historically has been the everyday person's opportunity to climb the socioeconomic ladder, right? If you don't come, you weren't born into money and status and power, that was the shot you had, was through education to be able to do better and to build a legacy for the generations that come after you. And so they're really trying to cut us off at the knees and make sure that we stay in our place, right where we are, and there is no climbing happening anymore.
Exactly.
And I also
DEI.
Oh yeah, diversity, equity. Let's call it what it is.
Diversity,
equity, and inclusion.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
All in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Seriously.
Yes, to eliminate that.
That is exactly what we're seeing right now. Whereas you mean Black folks still weren't benefiting from diversity, equity, and inclusion, even when you were trying to build it. So it was more in favor of making sure that others had opportunities at the table. I mean, and again, this is just a continued narrative. I mean, even the bills that we're dealing with in Tallahassee right now, that's around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You seriously you have to start asking, and I'm asking myself, like, do we really want to have the conversation about meritocracy?
Right.
Because we can have that conversation. Let's talk about that. Right. Let's really have a conversation. Or do you want to talk? I mean, or color blindness, as the legislation says. Let's have that conversation. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about that at all. And I get so worked up about it because I know some people are saying, "Oh, well, we should not talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion because it's not moving the needle on voters." I get it. Yes, I understand that. But there's a world where we can talk about our existence and our economy all at the same time.
Absolutely, that one.
That's right.
Absolutely. Also touching on another piece that you brought up around figuring out how we are going to educate our children.
Right.
I want to give a shout out to our good friend of the podcast, Kristen Falue over in Orlando with the Black History Project, who has been reigniting the Saturday School / Freedom School movement. Excellent way of teaching not only our history, but also trying to also bring in political education for the adults as well. Because, once you grab the kids, the parents are going to want to figure out, what's going on. And so we got to figure out a way to keep them engaged and motivated also. Our next Our next segment is a segment that is like really near and dear to all of us. That is on here is around property, property, and the property insurance. Natasha, I'm gonna throw that over to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Senator Jones, you brought up a really important point about economic issues, right? And ultimately, I know you were an educator, and as was I, and so we can't help but look at things through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like basically, for people that don't know what that is, it is that when you have a student in the classroom, there is a triangle of needs, starting with the most basic of food, water, shelter, safety, right? Before they're able to get to the top, which is self-actualization. And I think that voters are no different, right? Their basic needs need to be attended to in order for them to be worried about a number of other things like who's running for governor or whatever, right? And I think that sometimes it is by design to hold power to keep people from addressing their basic needs.
Right.
One of those needs is a roof over your head, right? And over the last, I would say, few years, there's been a lot of conversation, I think, in the media, but I even like just on social media, I've seen random people commenting on posts by the governor and stuff, talking about my property insurance, my house, my rent, everything is so expensive. And I want to share with you all, I just recently saw this incredible article. I think it was like through the WFLA. I just want to read the headline for this because this is insane. Florida House Speaker responds to Democrats' call to investigate insurance companies. I never thought in the years that I had been working in Democratic politics that I'd ever see a headline like that, that actually attributes the hard work that you all have been doing for years to draw attention to this crisis and finally address it. So can you tell me what is going on with property insurance? And this is for both of y'all, right? Because I know you both do work on this, but what is happening with the property insurance crisis in the state of Florida? And what are y'all doing to fix the problem?
Here, what can I say is shout out to the speaker for even doing that, right? Because that's how government should work. Like I don't want to agree with you every time. That's boring, right? Angie, don't laugh. I'm serious. Like I want to disagree with you because I think that's what makes us a better people. But if we can fight about the same thing that we know for a fact that we're half of Floridians, if not more than half, is like, yo, who gonna speak up for us? Like property insurance? Then absolutely, let's do it. Let's all jump on that bandwagon together. And even with the fact of the suing, the investigation of those insurance companies. Because look, insurance companies came, 2 years ago and crying for broke. And the legislature went along with it and had us all to believe that this is what needs to happen in order to solve
$3 billion.
Yes, to solve the problem that it did not solve. It did not solve. As a matter of fact, it made it worse, and we're not going to see relief. And people are now in the situation of where possibility of losing their homes. So this is, and Representative Nixon spoke about it as far as this domino effect of what happens when you have bad policy where you think it affects one thing, when in reality, it affects more than just that, like what we're talking about right now. And the last thing I'll say is, even the things that we have, I'm not running any property insurance bills. I am supporting a great deal of them in the Senate as far as property insurance. But even the ones that have been battle tested by industry leaders for policy that could help Florida, they won't hear those bills. Those bills won't ever get heard. Why? Because we don't speak to that narrative. And so your bill won't get heard, or if they can pull from it, they'll put it into another piece of legislation. But people will never understand that. But when Representative Nixon and myself, when we get home, the first thing people say is, y'all not fighting hard enough for us with property insurance. When in reality, you're like, we actually got a few bills that will actually help you. But there are individuals who are more powerful than politicians who are pushing their agenda of why it can't get heard.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that when Democrats have a really good idea, sometimes they're not the ones that get to have their name on it, and somebody else on the other side of the aisle might take that good idea and run it as their own.
I know all about that. But no, what's interesting, like to that, I felt so good during the first week of legislative session. Someone from the Early Learning Coalition in Miami came and pulled me aside, like after a committee meeting, was like, "Thank you for the legislation you wrote. Da 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 da. It's helping us. We get more money now at the daycare system. So when the kids with school readiness," and I was like, like they pulled it out my bill. He was like, "I know, but you introduced it and da da da." But yeah, so you're totally right, Natasha. But then to Senator Jones's point, just in regards to like property insurance and the bills, it's a shame that like we're here. If they would have listened to us, they would have put up guardrails to stop the insurance companies from gouging us. And then also some of them like took that money and ran. They legitimately ran and left the state of Florida. And so I know there are conversations right now regarding if folks have auto insurance, they're offering auto insurance policies that they also need to offer property insurance and that type of stuff. But I know one of the major issues is like around like reinsurance and all the things. And so there is a bill that's moving right now, unfortunately. But I heard that it is not actually going to help consumers. And it's crazy. Like one of the main things is the fact that the insurance companies get to basically like string the consumers along when they want to file a claim, right? Like they just hold it and just deny a claim or like take a long time to acknowledge an appeal and all the things. And so we have to put up guardrails. And you know what? Like they listen to constituents about this issue, right? So like we really got to get our constituents a lot more louder, really continue to harp on it. And then also like we got to vote for folks who are not allowing us to put guardrails on, and what we are going to see right now, there's a special election that's happening in the Panhandle, especially right now for Congress. Jimmy Patronis, who was supposed to be like one of the biggest consumer advocates as it relates to us, because he was the CFO, but he took millions and millions of dollars from insurance companies. And now like he is basically having to argue about his experience with property insurance companies and argue on his record and the fact that his record is shitty. And so hopefully the person that's opposing him does win. But I heard like that's basically all she's over there running on is just property insurance. And he's very, he might get taken out. I hope he does, but he could possibly get taken out.
Shout out to Gabe Allamore. Over in the Panhandle, CD1 special election early voting is going on now. Started yesterday, actually. Ends on the 29th. April 1st is special election day. Also over in CD6, we got Joshua going head to head with your friend and mine, State Senator Jones, Mr. Randy Fine. So, so the same early voting dates, same election day, time and place for CD6 as well. But both both special elections, property insurance is a key tactic and key issue that they have been running on. Gay has been running on it a lot more because she is dealing with the actual CFO of the state of Florida as her opponent. And so, it's got to be something that she has to like touch on and, address to people who own houses and can't get no insurance on their house. And so, what we want to do is, before you step out, State Senator Jones, we want to first thank you for joining us on the episode on today. We do have one more question for you, and it is a question that we ask all of our first timers when they come onto the podcast. And that question for you is, what is your vision of a Florida where Black people are able to live in freedom, equity, and authenticity?
When you gonna have a question like that?
Ooh. Period.
Yeah.
Feel like that.
Period pool, as the kids say, Gen Z, period pool.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I think we can wrap it up. Yep.
That's no need to be said. Also, I know that there are going to be a lot of people that's going to touch on the fact that one of the major pieces of legislation that we are fighting for is the Harry C. and Harriet V. Moore Florida State Voting Rights Act. That was not a topic that we touched on this particular episode. And the reason being is that we're going to have an episode dedicated exclusively to that piece of legislation and why it is important for us to not only see that piece of legislation get passed through the legislature during this session, but also what you as constituents within the state of Florida can do to make your particular legislator aware of that. So as always, this is the team of BLKFLA showing y'all love and appreciation for joining us on this BLKFLA experience. Stay free, stay blessed, and as always, continue to get acquainted with greatness. We are out.
Later.
Revolution was a movie, I be theme music. Time to ignite what I spit is lighter fluid. Stepping into it, fixed rays, such a glorious design. Marching into the biggest fight of our lives. Time to spoil the revolution.